Welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast, the podcast for those that are curious about what's possible inside their four walls. Before we get into this episode, let's hear a word from our sponsors that make this all possible. If you want visibility from the boardroom to the warehouse floor, then you need IFS Softion's WMS powered by Industrial AI. IFS Softion's WMS combines deep industry expertise, robotics orchestration, and proven warehouse execution in a single seamless platform. With more than 2 decades of experience and a 100% deployment success rate, IFS Softion helps you optimize fulfillment operations and solve your complex warehouse challenges. Learn more at www.softion.com. That's www.softion.com. It's Modex season, and as the industry prepares to descend upon Atlanta, marketing is top of mind for many supply chain leaders. Is your company's marketing and PR connecting with decision makers to drive business? If you need marketing project support, Master Plan Communications is a great resource to help you make it happen. For 15 years, Master Plan Communications marketing and PR have been building awareness and creating demand for material handling companies. MPC offers strategic marketing and PR planning, media relations, video productions, photography, websites, digital marketing, social media, and more. Connect with MPC at masterplancommunications.com and on LinkedIn. Is your fulfillment operation ready for the next surge in demand? Don't wait until productivity stalls to think about automation. Get proactive and talk to Ocado Intelligent Automation to find out when to start your automation journey, how smart software orchestration accelerates performance, and how AMRs like Chuck scale across sites and seasons. Learn how flexible deployment, ongoing support, and real scalability help you meet your customer expectations before peak hits. Head to OcadoIntelligentAutomation.com to start your warehouse automation journey and find them in booth B10119. That's B10119 at Modex. Thank you to our sponsors, and now let's get to the podcast.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, we are going to dive into Attabotics, which was in the news recently in the last couple months. And we're going to talk a little bit about how they're coming back to the market and how they've joined forces with Lafayette. And we're also going to learn a little bit about Lafayette as well. So we're going to be joined by Bruce Robbins, who is the founder at Lafayette. And we're going to be joined by Art Eldridge, who is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Software for Attabotics. And also Mark Dickinson, who is the SVP and General Manager over at Attabotics. So we're going to dive into kind of what happened with Attabotics, what the new iteration of Attabotics looks like, and also what their solution is if you're not familiar, and how they're coming to market and some of the things that they are announcing and going through right now and how they're going to be at Modex as well. So Mark, Art, Bruce, welcome to the show. How are you guys?
Great. Thank you for having us. Yeah, thanks for having us, Kevin.
Absolutely. Happy to get you on, and definitely want to, as I'm sure some other people want to hear too, about what's going on with Attabotics, right? So let's kick it off here. Bruce, start for us. You're the founder of Lafayette. So tell us a little bit about Lafayette and also a little bit about Attabotics and how ultimately these two companies have kind of come together now.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm Bruce Robbins. I'm president of Lafayette. Founded it in 1989. I've been doing controls design and programming and automation for conveyor systems specifically for 40 plus years. Lafayette started back in 89. We began as a controls house, and we were doing controls for various manufacturers, various integrators, and so we've got a lot of experience with various pieces of equipment and how to make that work, how to bring in different pieces and bring them to the customer. So that controls and that software background kind of set us on a path. As well, I'd like to say that from the very beginning, part of our DNA was that we want to put the customers first. We want to listen to what their needs are. We want to be their advocate when we're looking for equipment and talking to providers and so forth. We've always felt like that's set us apart: customer service, customer support, and if we can ensure that our customers are successful, then we found we'll be successful. That's as long as we put them first and make sure that they're doing things right. In the late 90s, we expanded. Some things happened in the market, and we began doing complete systems. So we started doing turnkey, providing equipment, doing full end-to-end engineering, installation, and so forth. So that really changed the model of who we were. And shortly after that, we started adding on because we didn't want to be just Midwest. We wanted to reach out. So we've added offices in South Plainfield, New Jersey to support that market and have a location right there. Also in Ontario, California. So we've got an office on the West Coast, headquartered out of Kentucky, but we're really coast to coast that we can reach and be somewhere, that day. So that's been important. In 24, we added mesh automation to our family of businesses, which is robotics, machine tending, depalletizing, palletizing, automatic robotic systems. So when we became aware of Attabotics and their goods to person and just the technology that was there, we were really excited about that. Thought it was a great fit, and it would really I don't want to say it completes us, but because that seems like it's kind of an odd thing to say, but it really does complete the package that we can offer. So it was a good fit, and we're excited to have them on board. And with the depth of what we bring to the table in engineering, especially controls and then software, we think that we bring a deep bench to what they do, as well as support and project management. Actually, getting jobs executed and implemented. Because Kevin, customers love for the suppliers to be there, but they don't want them there full time. They want them to go in, do their job, and get out. And that's part of having a successful client is giving them the ability to solve their needs and just run their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point there as well. And so they kind of said like, all right, Attabotics, you complete me, right? At the end of the day, that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So great to hear the evolution of the business, and obviously kudos to you for being in business for so long as well, and being able to over time develop this kind of complete system as you talked about. But let's talk a little bit about kind of, I guess, maybe what happened to Attabotics and how we kind of got to where we are now. So Art, I think you're gonna fill us in here, because I know from my perspective, right, I think the way, if I remember the timeline, I saw some news that Attabotics had like a big deal on the table, and then it was like a couple of weeks later, Attabotics is going bankrupt, right? So tell us a little bit about kind of what happened, because I think people are curious, as I am myself, and how that kind of previous iteration is leading up to joining forces with Lafayette now.
And it's interesting, the background of Attabotics for some years has been an awful lot of R&D not just money, but an
Mhm.
awful lot of effort that was put into R&D. So, if you look at the product per se, it had a great reputation and really was finishing strong before the kind of collapsed in the summer of last year, which I remember really well because I got a lot of phone calls that day. But, you got
Sure.
$200+ million of capital, you can do a lot of things with that. And anywhere
Mhm.
from 200 to 300 people that were involved in building this product. What you end up doing was you got something that was really, at the end of the day, very robust, very strong, really something that's solid for the fulfillment industry. And you had a lot of iterations that got you to that point. So, it was a kind of a shocking news when you think about how sudden the collapse of it was. But at the end of the day, you've got to be funded somehow, right? And our funding here at Lafayette is, we're not leveraging the credit of others or private equity to bring a product or a service to the marketplace. So we own it wholly, but at the end of the day, we're not leveraging bankers and other work to kind of keep this product rolling. What we've done or what we're benefiting from is years of development and iterations, years of a lot of money being put into the product, and a premise of a product that was great. I mean, the invention of Attabotics and the premise of what it was about is just, and we'll talk about it here in a little while, but it's pretty powerful when you think of cube and labor and a warehouse. So you always want to get more into a less space, and you want to do it with less effort than you did prior. So that premise is very, very true. But at the end of the day, the collapse of this thing was very sudden. It was very abrupt, and it ultimately came down to finances just weren't there to keep the company going. And I'll never pretend to know what goes into a financial person to make decisions on those, right?
Sure.
There's money always at bay that's front and center in these conversations, but I couldn't tell you why they decided to do what they did at the end and go into bankruptcy. But what I'm really happy about is the product, the strength, the expertise, and the premise of this thing is about as strong as it ever was before. And now that we've taken a hold of it, I think we're going to put a new light onto it and kind of do a little bit of a different direction with solving needs of the industry.
Yeah, and great to get that context there, because it sounds like you mentioned, like 7 years of R&D, right? I mean, obviously, solid product, solid solution was pretty well regarded in the market, as I remember, and I've seen people speak about it. And so Bruce, I'm curious, what did you see there? And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, it was kind of like a completion of Lafayette, almost in a sense, right? So what did you kind of see as the opportunity there? And I'm curious too. I mean, was Attabotics like a solution you had worked with before, or did you become familiar with it just from the news that was going around? How did that kind of come about, and how did you realize, like, okay, I think this is an opportunity for us?
Yeah, Kevin, I really became more familiar with it last summer when all of this was happening.
Mhm.
And it is, it's hard to, understand or really put a finger on exactly what went wrong. As far as the technology goes, the thing that I kept coming back to is that, there are a handful of providers out there in the market, and this is the one technology that gives you really dense storage, and you can access any inventory with one move. So one bot can go get the merchandise. There's no sorting, there's no digging, there's none of that. You don't have to look behind another tote. You can go right to that, what you want. And the only thing I can imagine and really what we are focused on is that, like Art's already said, there is a lot of research, a lot of work done in to make a really solid product. But I think that was the R&D phase of really putting the effort into developing this technology and developing and what we need to do is change our roadmap to be a manufacturer and system execution company. So the first thing we did was we said, okay, we've got to develop a roadmap so that we are always improving, but we know where that improvement's going. And we have to put a team in place that we focus on getting projects completed and having a solid roadmap of how that's going to be done. Because like I said earlier with Lafayette, it's important to get into a customer's building and you are making changes, you are disrupting them, but you need to make those changes, make those improvements, and then get out and be there for support, but not just stay there. So the implementation and getting complete is a key to everybody's success. One of the things that was hard about this when we started talking with Attabotics was, the situation that the employees and their existing customer base was put in. There's a lot of uncertainty there that really you hate to, and I know it wasn't us here that did that, but it put those people in a bad situation. They didn't know what support was going to be available, what their future looked like, and that's always hard for anybody. I mean, at the end of the day, we're human beings trying to make a living and do the right thing for people, and all of those people were in a really uncertain spot. So we're glad to be past that and really focusing on a good company, a good product, and making a difference.
Absolutely. And I think that, that makes a lot of sense, definitely. And it's great to hear the opportunity you saw there, but then also, to be able to, as you said, start to move forward as well. So Mark, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is the approach to Attabotics now? And what's kind of going to be the difference here from, I don't know, I guess maybe chapter 1 now to chapter 2 of Attabotics that you guys are kicking off?
Sure. So, like both Art and Bruce said, there was a lot of time and effort and energy put into the product and understanding, how it works and how it applies and that kind of thing. And I think probably the biggest difference you'll see now is there's really an intentional move to really meet the customer where they are. Every customer is a little bit unique in what they're trying to solve for, but at the end of the day, as solutions developers and implementation specialists, I would say, we really need to figure out, what's giving them heartache and really kind of help step them through that. So one of the biggest keys I think that we're looking at is getting out and talking to more end users, more customers. We've been engaging with several distributors, trying to talk to the integrator market, talk to the distributor market. They have 25 years, 30 years, sometimes longer than that, experience talking to all these different users of these solutions. So I think that's probably one of the biggest keys is engaging with those customers, with those distributors, with those integrators to see how we can apply this technology. The other thing that we've really looked at too is some of the call it craziness in the market and some uncertainties, and we've really tried to mitigate some of that. So before there was a lot of manufacturing capability and for both the mechanical and the robots, up in Canada. And one of the benefits of having operations on both sides of the border is we've actually rationalized that manufacturing capacity between call it the Attabotics Technology Center in Calgary and Danville, Kentucky. So now we can manufacture, parts and pieces on both sides of the border. So gives those customers a little bit more confidence in being able to contain some costs and be able to manage through. I think, and again, probably the biggest thing is leveraging, the experience and the reputation and all the institutional knowledge that Lafayette's built over their long delivery cycle of delivering projects, doing it well, delivering them, as intended, as customers have asked for them, and just being a great partner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it sounds like a great kind of coming together here, because as Bruce touched on, like, the operator, the warehouse owner, right, is not, you don't want your engineering consulting firm or integrations team or whoever it is putting these projects in to basically move in with you for a long time, right? You want them to come in, like, you just want them to be a house guest, right, for a little while, and that's about it. And you don't want to see them too often, often because you see them too often, well, stuff's probably not working the way it's supposed to, right? So I think, marrying kind of that long experience and history with Lafayette, with newer to the market solution in a sense, I think makes a lot of sense at the end of the day, right? To move that forward into kind of the next chapter here. So very interesting to kind of hear about some of the background here and kind of how this all came together. So now, Mark, let's talk a little bit about the solution itself. I think Art, touched on it a little bit. Bruce mentioned a little bit about it, but for people maybe that were not familiar with Attabotics and the solution itself previously, tell us what is it, how does it work, and what makes it kind of unique in the market?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that goods to person has really kind of taken off, let's say in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And it's brought a lot of great innovations. And with it, I think the Attabotics technology really kind of emphasizes a couple of those. I mean, right off the bat, we have immediate access and direct access to every product inside of the structure. So because of the way that the geometry is set up and the way that the robots move through the system and how the structure is designed and the workstations are configured, we can be picking, from the time that we get an order dropped to the system, we can be picking inside of, say, 60 seconds. So we're very intentional and very conscious of allocating and using the resources that we've got in the system to the most efficiency we can possibly find. We spent a lot of time organizing and optimizing all those movements and making sure that they're all value added, and that we don't have to do anything, kind of stutter steps or move things just so that we can get to the second piece. So it's a lot of intentional design around how products move through the system and get to the operators as fast as possible. I think the other thing is, when we look at cost of space and these buildings and that kind of stuff, it's expensive and it keeps climbing. So we want to make sure that those operators are operating as effectively as possible, the most units per labor hour. So one of the other things that we really focused on was the storage density. How can we utilize all the cubic square footage in the space that we're given? Go as high up as we possibly can. Make sure that we get the most products per square foot, and make sure that those operators just stand there and pick, don't have to move around. So really focusing on efficiencies, around space utilization, operator throughput, accuracy, and just general efficiencies in the building, making sure that the technology kind of checks those boxes.
The technology itself and its fit, but it's also, how do you apply that technology to this very complicated industry, warehousing and fulfillment, right? One of the things that I kind of look at, I kind of changed a little bit of the mantra here, in that we offered a product in the past called Attabotics, and it was turnkey everything. The way I look at it today is, we have a storage product or structure product, we have a robotic product, we have a software product, and we have a station or kind of a presentation station product. And we're now kind of delimiting those and looking at all four of them to match the needs of our customers. So what's really exciting for me is, we're partnered not with just one of these really cool, great technologies that has some robustness and longevity to it, but now we're bringing in the controls and electrical conversation that can integrate this with great success, great repetition, and also do it in a manner that's acceptable for our end clienteles. Coming in with, Chinese or European electronics and components is, hey, it's been done, but I wouldn't say it's the norm for North America. We need to come in with robust technologies that folks are familiar with, trained on, can readily get the components and parts to do these types of things. But also, we're not just integrating in a storage structure and with robots, we're integrating it into a workflow. And the key to doing that is not to think of these things as silos or products by themselves, but to think of it as of a greater mass and what the result that we're trying to do. And Mark brought up, some great points, but the key for us is, this technology fits with getting more product into less space and getting it immediately available right away. So some of these marketplaces, whether you're in healthcare or parts or e-com, where you may not have a lot of predictability or knowledge of what your SKU base does, this becomes critical to automating those facilities and looking at it through a glass of both a provider as well as a manufacturer. I think gives us a little bit of a different lens on how we view the world. The other thing that we're doing is we're going to do two market strategies. We have two different deployment strategies. One is to bring this forward with a software system or infrastructure that is really much more machine controlled. And that's really beneficial if our clients want to take more control of their destiny. So there's two models in the sense that I can tell me what bin you want, and I'll bring the bin out, and then I'll put the bin back. So we call that kind of a bin in and bin out interface. Works great with working with other integrators. It works great with WMS companies that have strong capabilities into it. And it also works great in environments where the customer themselves want to be in control of everything. If you're getting into a younger customer or something that's a little less complex with their technology stacks, then we could come in with the full WES package. And the WESs have orders, inventory, and business attributes or business rules that they're executing upon. So the way that we've now decoupled the orders, inventory, and order attributes from the robots themselves, we now have a win-win and a two-pronged approach for delivering something that meets our customers, like Mark was mentioning, to where their needs are. And that's going to be, I think, very critical for our success, but it's going to be really critical for our clients and those that need control or those that need expertise and us being able to deliver both ways.
Yeah, interesting. And it's interesting to hear kind of how you're thinking about the evolution there too now with the other offerings, as you mentioned, added on top of there. So you both kind of touched on the kind of immediate accessibility to product, right? And the ability to access all SKUs immediately, I think was the word you used there, Mark, earlier. So tell us a little bit about, that process and how that's a little different from other ASRS on the market, because, we have ASRS that, need to dig for the bin, right? Or they go through different iterations. And obviously we see, where the robot is together, we see robots that are decoupled from each other to be able to ultimately make those bin presentations for the picker themselves. So tell us a little bit about kind of the differentiator there in the overall ASRS market.
You look at operations today, whether it be e-commerce, retail, grocery. I mean, it's really in every vertical. It's how do we spend money for these resources? How do we use them the most effectively? So one of the ways that the technology is designed is scalable. So we can, if we need more throughput, we can add more robots, we can add more workstations. It's really designed to, like I said, meet the customer where they are. So when we put these resources into the building, we want to use them as effectively as possible. So with the Attabotics system, if you have a group of orders that you want to start picking, just tell us what they are. We'll go get at it and we'll start picking. We'll start moving robots immediately, even if that means that some of the additional orders can be dropped afterwards. We'll drop them in, we'll prioritize them, and make sure that we get going. Because we have direct access to every single bin, we don't have to do any prep work. There are some systems out there that have to be told what's going to be picked 4 to 6 hours from now, so that they can go move things around and make sure that you have the right access to the bins in the right place, and do some kind of slotting or sequencing or moving from one position to another. We don't have to do that. We just assign a robot, go grab a bin, and bring it out to the operator. Those operators' time are precious. We want to make sure that they have access to all the tools that they need in order to do the job. So we, like Art was mentioning, we really focus on those prioritizations and system efficiencies, and start to dig through on a kind of on a individual level, and make sure that we're utilizing all the resources that we have as best as possible.
What's interesting is when you think about readily accessible, inventory, which is really, really paramount to success of a lot of these systems or business needs. But I was in Chicago last week kind of thinking about it and going up and down an elevator, and it's no different than going up and down an elevator shaft. My daughter lives in like a 50-story high tower there. And you have elevator shafts that go through every floor. And you've got elevator shafts that go right to 10 floors, another 10 floors, another 10 floors, bypassing everything else that's out there. It's very much like that with our Attabotics technology, right? We have elevator shafts that kind of bring your product or bring your robot down the shaft, get to the product, pull it off of the floor, put it back in the shaft, and take it right down to the need, which ends up being the main floor of the basement. And we've got multiple shafts that are dynamically moving around to get to those products. And I think, Mark, we looked at things where we're about 1 minute or less if you need a piece of inventory on the worst case scenario. That's worst case scenario. Best case, I can get things out in seconds. So again, if you're looking for very unpredictable nature of your SKUs and you don't know what your business is, or you have very, very dynamic marketing, very, very fast fashion would be one that would really lean to, but auto parts distributions, manufacturer distribution for parts, pharmaceuticals that need to get out to their consumers right away. All of those things where you don't want to take the time to mull or dig or reposition inventory to get to the point of use or into a box that goes out the door. These are where we're really going to benefit and shine on others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that throughput becomes so important, right? Because I mean, I've seen, other ASRS systems where there is like a little bit of a lag time if there's not the right amount of robots in the mix, and it gets a little heavier on the order volume, and then your picker is kind of sitting there or standing there waiting, right, for that tote to come down or that bin to come down to be able to do that. So it's really interesting to hear, and definitely pretty incredible to hear on the R&D side how much went into that, as you mentioned there earlier, Art. So really interesting. And now we talked about the bins, right? So there's some new news around bins specifically, and I heard Mark is the bin guy. So Mark, you want to tell us about the news? Actually, news as of this morning of this recording, right? So tell us what the new news is around the bin.
Absolutely. As of this morning, Attabotics officially launched what we're calling the Guardian bin. So the bin is a metal design, and it's originally there's a couple of different reasons for it. So the metal design gives us the ability to provide some additional comfort and safety to customers. Getting a lot of the plastics out of the solution really helps us on a cross section for fire suppression design and that kind of thing. So the bin itself is sheet metal for all 5 sides. The cool feature that we designed into this is the ability to contain liquids inside of the bottom. So one of the big asks that we were getting from customers, really kind of across all verticals, whether in grocery, consumer products, some pharmaceuticals, it was really around what happens. It's something that customers have always asked, what happens if I have a spill? So with this bin, you have the products are all contained inside of the metal, but then on the bottom on the bottom of the bin is actually a plastic interface so that we don't change any of the interface with the robot. Still the same, but that plastic bottom is designed to contain up to I think 2 gallons of liquid inside the base. So anything that if you have groceries that leak, any kind of shampoos, conditioners, different liquids and gels, if for whatever reason one of those does develop a leak, we're not going to spread that all over the system, and we're not going to get it all over the robot. So the design of the bin is also, like I said, it's designed around providing customers some additional comfort around and around the safety systems, and it's something that we've incorporated into the design of the V5 robot for a long time. When we look at how we deploy these systems and how they go to market, and how customers are looking at protecting their investment. The V5 robot was really designed with those intents in mind. So the robot itself is TUV and CE certified. We did some additional certifications around the different systems in the solution, both the charging system and the robot itself. So it was kind of a natural evolution for us to kind of go in and start to figure out, what's kind of the next thing. And by getting a lot of that plastic out of the system, it really gives us an opportunity to work a little bit closer with, risk management teams, insurance companies and the like, to provide a better solution for our customers.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, from an ASRS perspective, one of the challenges there has been around fire suppression and how does that get past certification, whether it's local municipality or fire codes in general, right? So definitely interesting approach with the galvanized metal bin now being a part of that. So does that become, is that something that now becomes like standard on all solutions that you install, or is this like an optional thing for customers? How does that look?
Yeah, it's something that I think we work. It's again, meet the customers where they are. So in some instances, customers are really focused on it. Whether, again, like I said, if it's for fire suppression, if it's for the leak protection, if it's for just general risk mitigation, it's something that we work with them on as part of our design phase. And that's, I think, one of the things that it's where we kind of focus on with each project. We can have two systems that are exactly the same, but because they go into different buildings, they're going to have different requirements for us to help the customer get those installed and get them deployed. So when we work with customers on a project by project basis, we look at the products that they're trying to store, the size of the system, some of the unique characteristics of the facility itself, and then work with them to really kind of advise the local municipality that, hey, this isn't something to be afraid of. This is how we protect it. This is how we manage and mitigate. And at the end, the metal bin is another tool that we have to demonstrate that this is a capable, stable solution that is going to bring the value that we say it's going to. Like I said, it's something that we work closely with the customers on.
Mark, tell Kevin a little bit about the added shipping cost benefit out of it too, and the fact that the bin's collapsible.
Yeah, so that was another big thing. So with injection molded plastic, you ship a lot of air. So the bins that we were shipping before, I think we were able to get 288 of them on a traditional C can. So not many, especially when we start talking about some of these solutions that are 30,000 bins or so. We can get about 2,800 of the metal bins into the same size C can. So 10x what we were originally able to. So it really kind of knocks the freight cost down, becomes a lot more streamlined, makes it a lot more efficient for customers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big difference too, because I've been on a shuttle system project before, and I remember when we got our totes in, it was like flooded, like our receiving dock. There was this, there's so many coming in, right? And then getting them all in. That was fun, definitely. But it was very interesting there, and the design there, and it kind of goes to show kind of the continuous improvement and iterations that are going on over there to continue to make this a solid solution. Continuing on in the market here. So now if we look at kind of coming up here, we have Modex happening, right? And you all are going to be exhibiting at Modex. So this is kind of like your coming out party in a sense, maybe. And so tell us a little bit about, what can people expect from you all at Modex, and what can they see there if they come visit you?
So we're going to be on the booth with Lafayette. Mesh Automation is also going to be there. I know Bruce mentioned them before. we're, but like Bruce said, the Attabotics solution is a piece of the Lafayette family, and I think what you'll see at Modex is really the kind of that entire family's capabilities on display. We'll have the warehouse control system capability. We'll have the convey and sort capability. The robotics and end effectors, and then also the goods to person solution. So we're going to have some of our technology on the booth, and our objective is really to be able to talk to customers about their needs and figure out how we can help them. It's not really about shoehorning the technology into any of the technologies into the customer's operation. It's really trying to understand and learn where some of their pain points are and how we can apply the things that we know and the things that the whole Lafayette family brings to the table. So looking forward to having some conversations with people and being able to talk about some robots.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to seeing it too there, and seeing the whole booth. As you mentioned, it's kind of a whole scope now and spectrum, right? And you have these kind of different tools and solutions to fit into the right fit, right? Versus just trying to sell one solution, because we got to sell this one solution, right? So we want to give you the right thing to be able to do that, which I think makes a lot of sense and is super important, I think, for the industry right now to continue to move some of these innovations forward in the best way possible. So what is the booth number? I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you know your Modex booth number? Where can people find you?
E14787.
Modex is a great opportunity, obviously, to touch, feel, see, look. What a great show floor! What a great show! We've been doing it for well over 30 years. We're also excited to kind of get out there and talk to the integrators. The integrators are absolutely vital to this industry. As we start growing and there are more technologies that keep coming onto the market every day, how you integrate technology 1 with technology 2 and technology 3 is really, really critical. It's one of the reasons why we have a kind of a 2-prong approach where, yes, LEI can solve your needs, but I think that the masses and the larger opportunities getting into with the integrator space, especially the ones that have some pretty robust, strong software integration capabilities. But we look at the future, and the future there's no silver bullets out there. We all love to dream about the day where we could put one technology and it solves everything. But the stark reality of everything is the foundation of what LEI has been supporting others to do that type of delivery and integration into the marketplace, and stand by the customer, stand by the integrator, but make sure that we're all solving the right pain and that we've done it to the satisfaction of a client. So integrators will be really, really key for us to have conversations with, talk and show, look, feel at Modex.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great place for the industry to come together, and happy that you all will be there too, and showing off the Attabotics solution as well as everything else Lafayette has to offer. So if people want to, if they can't wait for Modex, or they're not going to make it to Modex, what's the best way to learn more about what's going on with Lafayette and also with Attabotics now?
Ways just to kind of give us go out to our website. Website's got quite a bit of information. It's going through a little bit of a relaunch here in a few days, but just hit one of the contact buttons or phone call buttons or email buttons, and we'll be happy to engage in a conversation in a humble, honest way with it.
All right, fantastic. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. So Bruce, Art, and Mark, thank you so much for your time on the show today and for filling us in on everything Attabotics and kind of the next chapter. So we look forward to hearing how it continues to develop and seeing the evolution. So thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes. And for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.